Kathleen Wilson is a wife, a mom, a Charleston Water Commissioner, and a former Charleston City Councilwoman. Now, she wants to be the next state representative for South Carolina House District 115, which covers Folly Beach, James Island, Kiawah, and Seabrook Islands. I speak exclusively with Kathleen for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
Kathleen G. Wilson, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. It is always a pleasure to be here.
Well, I appreciate it greatly. Obviously, you are a former Charleston City Councilwoman, as we sit here at City Hall right here. And obviously, you're a current water commissioner, a mom, a wife, and obviously now, you're a resident of James Island and have been for the past 30 years or so.
Right.
And I understand now that you want to be one of the next state representatives for South Carolina House District 115, which covers Folly Beach, James Island, and obviously Kiawah and Seabrook Islands. Why Kathleen Wilson? Why now?
The opportunity presented itself with Peter McCoy vacating the seat. He moved on to a better position. And when that occurred, I gave it a little bit of thought and it percolated a little while. And I was approached by some others who said, "We think you're the one. We would really like you to run." Personally, I find myself with time on my hands. Now this is a very good time in my life. The work that I have can certainly be pushed to the weekends. Some of it is very naturally occurring on the weekends, but other work can be pushed that direction. And my children are grown and
Yes.
gone. And my husband's a good cook and can take care of himself. And I find myself with a wonderful opportunity. I mean, I was approached about this, 10, 12 years ago. And the time was not right with younger children in middle school. I wasn't going to be going up and down the interstate. So the time is right for me. I have the knowledge. I spent 3 years as a council member with City Council and now Charleston Water System, where I'm seeing this very well-run public utility. So I take that body of knowledge that I have created for myself and I've learned from everybody, and I think I can be effective and apply that at the State House. Plus, I have no ties to Columbia. I'm not the stereotypical attorney, real estate, insurance guy who goes to Columbia. Completely fresh background.
You talk about background, and obviously you just mentioned this. 3 years on Charleston City Council as a councilwoman, and there was a big talk about obviously public safety over the weekend with the riots that happened here in downtown Charleston. How do you look at it as a former Charleston City Councilwoman, and how do you look at it as a resident of Charleston?
It's extraordinarily disappointing what happened Saturday night, and one of the worst displays of leadership I've ever seen. When I was on City Council, I was actually the chair of public safety,
right.
And I helped bring back a fire department after the Sofa Superstore
Right.
fire. So I understand something about tragedy. I understand something about anticipating, and that's not what we saw. First of all, the video out of Minneapolis
Right.
is tragic. It is gruesome to watch. And that sort of thing should never, ever happen. So there is no excuse. It's indefensible. Regarding Charleston, what I saw was the peaceful assembly of protesters, which is allowed to happen. It's a fundamental right, and I would protect that vigorously. But where it started to degenerate is the moment those protesters went up on the Ravenel Bridge and they were in traffic lanes mandating the shutdown of that bridge. That's when the first problem occurred. And I believe the bridge is a state asset.
Right.
The Mount Pleasant Department, City of Charleston, they all patrol that bridge. We could have even brought the state law enforcement in. Those protesters should have been asked to leave at that point. They were creating a public nuisance. They were trespassing. I would be arrested immediately if I was standing out in a traffic lane of the Ravenel Bridge.
If you were a state representative today, what exactly would you do right now?
I would want to see a review of what happened in the city of Charleston. I think a lot of that is internal to the city.
Sure.
The council members, the police chief, the mayor, they've got a lot to sort out among themselves, and it would be nice to get the truth as to what happened, who gave what orders and who did not give what orders, and get to the bottom of it.
And I know something that you also obviously want to get to the bottom of is education in South Carolina. You said this quote, "Education is vital to future success. Right now, South Carolina is ranked last in the country in education, and there's not enough being done to fix it. As your state representative, I pledge to do everything I can to decrease state testing, put more money in the classrooms instead of at the administrative level, that is, and pay our teachers what they deserve." How much would you obviously decrease state testing by?
Well, the teachers that I have spoken with tell me that they are consumed and overwhelmed at times with the numbers of tests that need to be administered every year. We can cut that back. This has grown little by little. So I think it's a multi-headed monster. Education is a huge issue in South Carolina. And I think that's one small part of the problem that really doesn't cost a whole lot and provides more teaching time. In order to bring new teachers into the system, they have to know about the profession they're getting into and spend actual time in the classroom. Yes, they do student teaching. They could probably do a whole lot more of it at several different schools so they get a very good feel for the profession. Once in that profession, we've got to pay professionals what they're worth. And these teachers do merit at least average pay in the country. I mean, they're below average right now. We've got to get the salaries up to retain the teachers, to bring down the classroom sizes, to encourage more people to go into teaching, and take care of the obvious problems. The one problem, and I keep saying this, that nobody gives the time that it deserves is literacy. When we're talking about one of the biggest improvements we could make for students is taking children and making sure they are literate. They know how to read. And if you get to 3rd or 4th grade, it's almost too late. So they've got to be taken when they're young, taught how to read. If they're having problems, if it doesn't come naturally, then you need more intensive care. We do have reading specialists. We also change literacy programs, like you change clothes sometimes in our school district. But we've got to settle on one that works and get these kids in a pipeline, because if you can't read, you can't do math problems, you can't read a science book, you can't do geography, you can't do anything else.
How much money is actually available right now to increase teachers' pay and whatnot?
Oh, that's going to fluctuate. That fluctuates daily because we've taken such an economic hit with the virus. So I would not want to put a figure out, because the figure is going to be wrong probably by 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay. What exactly do teachers in 115 deserve right now?
They deserve to be respected. They deserve to have their concerns listened to and addressed in as concise a fashion as we can. It's not going to get done right away, but we have to take the major concerns and begin addressing those in a very methodical fashion, as well as the overall arching problem of education.
And let me continue with education. You said this quote: "We need to ensure that our children are grade appropriate reading levels so that they do not get behind, obviously, with critical skills. As they grow, we must begin to recognize that some in middle and high schools may wish to attend a 4-year college, some may choose a community college, and some may wish to pursue much needed vocational training. All of these options are important for the success of our children, so we must ensure our technical and community colleges have the support they need." What middle and high schools in 115 need more vocational training?
I would say all of them. They have to have some sort of track, vocational track. Not every child is college material nor wants to go to college. And quite honestly, there are some fantastic careers waiting out there in our trades, or plumbing and electrical work, auto repair, things like that are critical skills. You and I, we need them. There's at some point we're going to have to get our cars fixed or our house rewired or something like that. Those are very, very valid and very good career paths, and it's not good to give kids direction, help them discern what they want to do and help them get there. And we've neglected the vocational side in favor of 4-year colleges and pushing 4-year college. But I believe in that too.
Okay. And I was thinking, obviously they're building a satellite, campus for SC State on where I live on the east side of Charleston. Would you bring something like that to 115 if you could?
I don't think we need a bunch of different satellites. I think 1 or 2 in the area that are very well placed and very robust would be the ticket, rather than small, sort of half-baked satellites.
Okay. And let me turn to the coronavirus and the economy. I think that's one of your other issues. You said this quote: "For my part, as a candidate for the South Carolina House, I would like to focus my efforts on working with partners at the federal, state, and local levels to help those who have lost their jobs rejoin the workforce, and to empower small businessmen and businesswomen to invest again in our economy. This will have to be done by reforming our tax system and eliminating pesky regulations." Where's your list of partners right now?
Well, I'm not elected yet, but I look at chambers of commerce. I look at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I sat on their board of governors for years.
Right.
I look at the medical university,
Oh, yeah.
College of Charleston,
Sure.
our colleges and universities. So there are robust partnerships, and some of these are existing. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm not the first person to say all of this, but I do have knowledge of all of these entities because I've worked in nonprofit, for-profit, governmental,
Right.
educational, self-employment.
Right.
So I have a good taste of everything. But our small businesses, at some point, we've heard this in the city for years, are overwhelmed with regulations. And where can we trim to allow them to thrive, to allow them to work through the issues that face all small business owners?
And what are those pesky regulations right now?
Oh, well, when you get into construction, for instance, the permitting office in the city, a lot of it is just getting bogged down in bureaucracy and the timetable, the length of time that it takes to get anything of merit accomplished. That's more of a municipal level. But at the state level, let's get in and let's see where we can streamline. Let's see how we can make things more attractive. Not necessarily to something as large as a Boeing, but all of those spin-off industries that accompany a Boeing or a Volvo. How can we bring those to the city of Charleston? How can we bring those to South Carolina? Now, District 115 is not going to be a heavy industry district at all.
Okay.
In fact, we don't want that.
Okay. And how do you reform that tax system?
There again, these things, they take unbelievable working with colleagues. I mean, I was successful with that on city council.
Right.
I always had a very good relationship with all of my colleagues.
Yes.
To bring that to the state level, it takes that same sort of willingness to work together. So you start within your delegation, get to know the people in the delegation. What's going to happen is, regardless whether it's me or somebody else who goes up to Columbia, the best thing to do is to stop talking and learn. Because I watched it on city council for 12 years. I watched new council members come on board and they were going to change the world, and the person before them had absolutely no idea what he or she was doing. That person was going to get it done. And it's the same old, same old. Learn and listen, and then begin asserting yourself and your opinions, working within your delegation, working within that little ball of trust that is the Charleston delegation, and then from there expanding the circles concentrically.
Let me turn to development and conservation. You said this quote, "I believe in a balance between development and conservation. South Carolina still contains beautiful, vast rural lands, but that landscape is changing with its growth. I'm a firm believer in the Conservation Fund and will fight for its continued funding. It is always a delicate balance between the property owner, rights, and development. I would work to give property owners incentives to place land in conservation easements and keep South Carolina from becoming a state of urban sprawl to protect some of the most beautiful land in our country." What's that common ground right now with development and conservation?
That's a tricky thing. We are not going to stop development. Charleston is out there. South Carolina is out there as a very desirable place to live. And so development is going to occur, and it's incumbent that an elected official of any degree has to respect private property rights. That's a fundamental tenet of the United States, as a property owner has rights. Now, we curb those rights via zoning, and those are more municipal matters.
Okay.
But at the state level, I look at the opportunity to completely fund the Conservation Bank. I am a believer in the Conservation Bank and taking tracts of land and conserving them for future generations, having those easements in place. With private property owners, I tried time and time again on city council when a large development was coming, be it my district or somewhere else, with the property owner, would you be willing to put this property or a portion of this property into a conservation easement? And 100% of the answer was no. So why don't we try and find a way to incentivize that with beyond the standard tax credits that a property owner might receive, which is far less than the development value of that property. So I think we need to get a little more creative, and we also need to target where conservation is most appropriate, and look at things like offshore drilling, which I'm 100% against, and very, very bad development like Captain Sam's Spit.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I mean, that's what are they thinking? Those sorts of bad development need to be curbed.
What is smart growth?
Smart growth is a term that I've watched corrupted to mean whatever you want it to mean. And I think in the beginning, and again, this is more municipal than anything,
Okay.
smart growth is some degree of density within an artificially created urban growth boundary. And it works to a degree, but then you have to ask yourself, are you pushing this, is it like a balloon that's overinflated, pushing against that urban growth boundary? So at some point, you're going to have to move that boundary to accommodate new growth. And that's something that I worked with every single day on city council.
That's right.
And again, it goes back to property owners and their rights, but also giving them reason to conserve their land.
What would be those incentives for property owners?
Money. Everything boils down to money. Follow the money, and then you've solved, or you've explained away about 95% of the world's problems.
And you also said this too. Installation of sewer lines is a precursor to development. These lines remove the need for septic tanks, which require a larger lot size and eliminate property when the land doesn't perk. How much would you say the sewer lines cost the average taxpayer?
Well, the developer assumes those costs in most cases. But the precursors to development are zoning and sewer. And that's why Folly Beach hasn't been developed beyond, or it hasn't had big hotels and condo complexes out past the first 3 blocks.
Right.
Because the sewer lines don't extend further out. And Folly Beach is never going to put them in, and I completely agree with that decision. So they've got single-family houses for the rest of the island, which is maintaining the character that they wish to keep down there. So that's, the minute you put in sewer, now you've opened yourself to tremendous increases in density.
What is the current lot size in your mind?
It depends. It really depends on. It depends on the property. It depends on the context. It depends on what's around it. It depends on the zoning. If a piece of property is already zoned, it's a tough battle to have it downzoned, and most of the time that's unsuccessful. But again, this is all municipal sort of thing that I dealt with for many years,
Sure.
so I understand it pretty well.
Right. And when does the land actually perk, for those who don't know?
I don't know the specifics
Okay.
of septic tanks and perking, but it's all about the ability of the land to absorb from the septic tank.
Absolutely.
And if it's a certain type of land, it simply doesn't.
It simply doesn't.
But they're big lots. They're about half acre lots.
Wow. And what is the current tax revenue right now in District 115?
Well, mostly it's property tax because it's by and large a residential district with James Island, Folly Beach. You have the little commercial corridors, and of course you have fresh fields down at Kiowa and Seabrook.
Yeah.
But by and large it's residential, so it's property taxes and then sales taxes. There's very little in the way of accommodations. Some from Folly Beach, some from Kiowa and Seabrook. With rental properties, those sorts of things. But those are the major sources. What I would like to see, though, is the local government fund in Columbia return those monies to the communities from which they were accrued. Municipalities pay into what's called the local government fund. They pay a sum of money to Columbia. It is supposed to be returned to those municipalities. It's been years, probably 10 to 15 years, since they have received back 100% of what they put in. Columbia skims off the top.
How much did they skim off that top?
It's varied dramatically. I mean, it's gotten down to as low as in the 70th percentiles, somewhere in there. I think currently it's probably a better time. 82% comes back.
Okay. And how much do the actual towns get, like Folly Beach, James Island?
It depends on what they put in, and I can't give you those figures.
Sure. What is the quality of life right now, as you know, in District 115?
It's always under pressure, and a lot of that comes from development. And as a state representative, that's not my ball to carry nearly as much anymore. It's more for the state issues. Infrastructure. I look at the Department of Transportation and I want to pull my hair out with some of the fixes that they propose. I look at Central Park and Riverland Drive on James Island. My goodness, go to where I grew up and see where some of the traffic lights are placed. Now, for heaven's sakes, there is no reason we cannot put a traffic light in there. If you've got to remove a tree to clear a little right-of-way or to make a spot of visibility, okay, we can probably do that. But they come up with these wild solutions that cost millions of dollars when a traffic light would do the job. They do not respond to municipalities well. I had many, many dealings with DOT during my time on council,
Right.
and it was oftentimes not a good result. Once in a while we had a win. I'll tell you the big win that we did have.
Yes, ma'am.
Was at Folly Road and Maybank Highway,
Sure.
there at the bank,
Right.
with the double left turn.
Sure.
We, in traffic and transportation, they affectionately called that the Wilson double left. Because I absolutely, guys, this traffic's backing up onto Folly Road terribly every single day with many cycles of the light. We've got to have a double left. And it was one of the very few times that they were responsive to us.
I know this might be a tough question to ask, but how do you, if you were to be elected today, how would you reform the Department of Transportation?
Where does the money go for different projects? But what I would like to see, I'm just watching these mosquitoes.
Oh, yes.
At any rate, what I would like to see is a responsiveness to municipalities, and even carving out, not giving new monies, but making room for a municipal division. And also, it's not a 100% cafeteria plan where you can come in and pick and choose your regulations, but being more responsive, looking at situations and offering an increased flexibility for situations municipalities bring. And another example on James Island is Fort Johnson Road and Secessionville.
Right.
My goodness. And again, we had 2 traffic studies done while I was on council, and both times it came back as does not merit a traffic light. Well, I say you put a traffic light in there, and maybe it functions during the peak times in the morning and the afternoon, and then the rest of the day it simply flashes. Let's get creative with things like that. Again, a fairly cheap but effective fix.
Kathleen G. Wilson, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin.
You're very welcome.